certainly, of course, keep our eyes on everything having to go on with the quarterbacks here on the 415ers podcast, brought to you by the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. Follow Marc on social media at Marc Grandi, Marc with a C, Grandi with an I. I'm on social at eGiddings10. Okay, Marc. Well, the other part of that quarterback equation, of course, is Trey Lance. And obviously, we've talked about the opportunity that lays in front of him, the chance that he has to, I don't know if regain ground is the right way to put it, but certainly impress some people this offseason with, I'm sure, the work that he's been putting in and has, been delayed by with his surgeries. But he was over at Radio Row, and he's down in Glendale, doing as a lot of NFL players do. The media tours. Was talking to Rich Eisen earlier today, and I know we have some sound from that we can get to. But first and foremost, dude, I'm rooting for this guy. I know there might not be a quarterback spot for him. I know he might not be QB1. I know he may never be QB1 in San Francisco if Brock Purdy doesn't give him the chance. But I cannot emphasize this enough. If you do not root for Trey Lance, I feel like there is something just a little bit wrong with you because this guy seems to have a great understanding of the situation, no matter if he's the guy that was traded for with 3 first-round picks or if he's that same guy that has been relegated now beneath the guy who was Mr. Irrelevant. He understands everything in the room, and he understands also the type of work that he needs to do, and it all revolves around Trey and himself, not anything that anybody else is doing or the coaching staff that hasn't given him the opportunity. He's been the consummate professional thus far. I don't know if you learned it from Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if you learned it from college. I don't know if you learned it from the fact that his dad was a professional. I don't know where he learned it, but Trey Lance has been very impressive to me for a guy that I haven't seen play football.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I suggest if you haven't seen his interview on the Rich Eisen show, you should go and give it a listen. We do have some of the sound that we're going to run by you. I'll run by one of the pieces here for you in just a second, but you're totally right. If you are not rooting for Trey Lance, then I'm not sure what to tell you, because at every opportunity along a very, very bumpy first 2 years in the NFL, he has said the right thing 100% of the time. He has never thrown anyone under the bus. He has never said the wrong thing. He has consistently been a great teammate. He supported everyone, whether or not, we've had this conversation for a lot of the season, how it might feel difficult for him to support the Niners now that Brock Purdy was leading the way, because he felt like this was his team and maybe he didn't get a fair shake. And suddenly Brock Purdy, a 7th-round rookie, is having all this success and he's the talk of the league. Meanwhile, Trey Lance is sitting on the sidelines, in a walking boot. It's easy. I feel like it would have been easy for Trey Lance to feel that way. And maybe he does, privately, who knows? But everything he is saying publicly is the right thing. And this is where I want to get into what he said to Rich Eisen. Rich basically asked him, do you want to just be given the starting job? Like, do you just, by default, you're a first round, quarterback. Do you just want that starting job because it's where you were drafted? And here's how he answered.
It wasn't that situation, and I wouldn't want it to be that way. Brock played way too well, and Brock played at such a high level and handled himself the right way. I wouldn't want it to be a situation where I'm just handed something. And I feel horrible, obviously, for Brock for his injury. For me, I truly believe everything happens for a reason. Whether it's his, he's going to be better for it. Mine, I'm going to be better for it. And I'm excited to just get on the field and compete. That's all I want an opportunity to do.
Are you kidding me? All he wants against a 7th-round rookie, Mr. Irrelevant quarterback is to get on the field and compete. And this is coming from a guy who was drafted 3rd overall just a couple of years ago. I know it's just an interview, and he could be saying it for all of our benefit, but I don't know how you can listen to that, Evan. And the interview goes on. He was fantastic throughout the entire interview. I don't know how you can listen to that and not root for this guy and not feel confident that he's going into this offseason knowing everything that's on the line for him personally. I don't know. I feel like the Niners would solve a lot of their issues at the quarterback position, Evan, if they just put Trey Lance in front of a mic more often. I don't know. All the talk about Trey Lance and Brock Purdy and even Jimmy Garoppolo, make Trey Lance more public facing. And I feel like a lot of those questions are going to be answered, because I feel like part of the reason why the Niners or Niner fans are so I don't know, concerned about Trey Lance's future, and some of them are ready to move on and just give it to Brock Purdy and tell Trey Lance to, get the hell out of here. We just really don't know who he is yet. His first year, he wasn't the starter, didn't talk to the media much. His second year, he was the starter for 5 quarters, spoke to the media after one game, after some practices leading up to those games and all that. But we really don't know who he is yet. If you listen to Trey Lance speak, I think it's comforting, and I think you'll feel a little bit confident about, of course, the person he is, but the fact that he has the right mindset as a player heading into a potential quarterback competition.
Well, number one, I think the idea was for him to become the public face. Like that was the plan. I mean, that's why he was taken as high as he was. And I think the second part of that is, I think that's one of the reasons why Kyle Shanahan fell in love with him. Because in all honesty, there wasn't a whole lot of tape to base Trey Lance's performance off of. Like, he had one great season in college against competition that people continue to denigrate, and is understandably so. So Kyle Shanahan has a little bit of footage, and then he's got an opportunity to talk to this guy before the draft. And during the COVID year, there's not really a ton of face-to-face interaction. There's not a ton of, all right, I can go watch this guy play. I see why Kyle Shanahan fell in love with it. Like, it's hard not to, right? And I can only imagine the way he talks about football. Well, I've actually heard the way he talks about football. And look, I covered him at North Dakota State. Like, he's an awesome dude. Like, it's not a facade. Like, it's not an act. Like, he is a great person. I do believe that. And every person that has played with him continues to say the same thing. But the way that this is trending in San Francisco, and what to me Trey Lance has to kind of switch or flip if he's given the chance, as far as the narrative surrounding him, is good guys finish last. Like that's kind of the way that I view Trey Lance right now. Is he says all the right things, he's seemingly does all the right things, and yet when it comes to the football stuff, for whatever reason, we haven't seen the trust from Kyle Shanahan on the field, even when he was healthy. And that, to me, is unfortunately what speaks the loudest when we're talking about the quarterback position. Trey Lance has all the external tools. He has all the intangibles, it seems, to represent an organization, to be a great face for a historic brand. And at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you can throw a touchdown. That doesn't mean you can run for a first down. That doesn't mean you can hit an open receiver on a 5-yard slant. Like, that's unfortunately what Trey Lance has to prove. And it just will be unfortunate in my mind if he doesn't get the chance, because I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it too. And I'm with you. I know we have this conversation a lot this season, how Kyle Shanahan called plays and set up the offense for Trey Lance in his limited time as the team's quarterback, going back to his rookie year when he filled in a couple of times for an injured Jimmy Garoppolo. And then, of course, this most recent season when he was the team starter to open the year before he broke his ankle. I am in agreement with you, and I think most of our listeners, that those play calls and the way that he designed it for Trey Lance seemed a little concerning. Maybe it spoke to Kyle Shanahan not fully trusting Trey Lance. While I do feel that way, I also think it's too early. It's too small of a sample size to come away with that conclusion entirely, and there's still a lot of time for things to change. One other thing, I guess 2 other quick pieces of sound that I wanted to make sure that we played for our listeners here today, Evan, is Rich Eisen was basically asked Trey Lance, like, how tough was this for you watching this season from the sidelines after your broken ankle, after everything that you thought this season might entail?
It was hard. It was hard for sure. Ups and downs throughout the year. It got easier when I found my role. I went in, after probably a few weeks after my first surgery,
right,
and just talked to Kyle and was like, man, what can I do?
And then the follow-up, of course, from Rich Eisen is, okay, so what was your role? Like, you were maybe essentially acting as a coach, like an assistant coach there, helping the quarterbacks. Like, what was your role when you're on the sideline rehabbing from your ankle injury?
I started with base downs. Breaking down pressures, especially once Brock started playing it definitely picked up, which is around the time of my second surgery, right before my second surgery. But I needed something. I needed something to feel like I was contributing. That was the hardest thing for me, was getting to that spot where I'm feeling good. I'm doing my rehab. I'm in the meetings. I'm asking the right questions, but I didn't feel like I was truly helping. When a lot of time when Jimmy was playing, and obviously Jimmy's a vet. Jimmy's done it. He played at a really very high level.
Right.
But once Brock took over, like I felt like I needed the help. So whatever it was, base down pressures, third down pressures, red zone, I just tried to help as much as I could.
And again, that's Trey Lance on the Rich Eisen show from Wednesday of this week. I don't know how you can listen to that, Evan, and you hear you hear Trey Lance saying, "I felt like I needed to help my team somehow, even though I'm injured and I can't find the field. I got to do anything I can to help this team." Specifically, when Brock Purdy became the starting quarterback, and they have a rookie going out there with not much experience, and Trey Lance not much experience himself, but he's doing everything he can to help him be successful. I feel like we tend to overlook great teammates because generally bad teammates get more press than good teammates. But good teammates are rare. And Trey Lance is a great teammate from all that we can tell, Evan. And I'm really glad we got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain for Trey Lance this season via Rich Eisen. It's why I wish the Niners made Trey Lance available for interviews more this season, because we would have heard more of these I don't know, these little bits and pieces of information throughout the regular season. Trey Lance, as you said, seems like a fantastic person and did everything he can to help this team. And I listened to him talk, and every sentence, every word that he says, it gets harder for me to write him off. And I know I have done that at times. Said Brock Purdy's the future of this team. He's the starting quarterback week 1, no doubt, as long as he's healthy. And I know it's just words. It's not action on the field. And I know that's what you're talking about. But every time I hear Trey Lance say something, Evan, it gets harder and harder for me to write him off, because just the way that he talks, he makes it easy for you to believe in him. That's how I feel listening to Trey Lance.
I get it. I feel the same way. But the question from a lot of fans, from people in the NFL, maybe from people on the team, is going to be, okay, so does that mean he's a starting quarterback?
I mean, I talked about it early in the episode. If there's any kind of issue with Brock Purdy's injury, his recovery, Trey Lance will start week 1. And then at that point, Evan, it doesn't matter if the original plan was Brock Purdy's your starting quarterback week 1 or not. If you get a chance to start to open up a season and you perform well, you do not have to give up your job once the incumbent, the expected starter, returns. That's not how this league works. If you're playing great, you're not leaving. So if there is any hiccup, and I know it might feel like I'm rooting for that to happen, because I believe in Trey Lance, but I'm not rooting for that to happen. But for Trey Lance's perspective, if you get that opportunity, you do not have to give it up just because you were not the expected starter going in to start the season.
Yeah, I personally feel like the more likely outcome is Brock Purdy does come back. He does start the season for the 49ers, and whether it be due to injury or regression, or in all likelihood, some combination of both, that the 49ers start slow and Kyle Shanahan determines it's time to go to Trey. I think that is how I see the most likely path for Trey Lance to play and start, outside of course, an injury occurring to the starting quarterback. So, look, we'll never know, but we'll certainly be paying attention to Trey Lance whenever he opens his mouth this summer, and he's going to get to do it a lot, I think, and he's going to have a chance to prove doubters wrong, and he's going to have a chance to hopefully change some minds in that organization, because he was originally drafted to be the franchise quarterback and unfortunately hasn't had a chance to do that, because first year stuck behind Jimmy, second year he got injured, and now he may or may not be stuck behind another quarterback. So the saga of Trey Lance continues.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, like you said to start the episode, like I said earlier this week, maybe it was last week, this is the offseason that I think can make or break Trey Lance's career, at least with the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, at least. He will get another chance somewhere else if it's not in San Francisco, unless things just go absolutely terrible for him. But if he wants to make something out of his career with the team that drafted him, it's do or die time right now. He has to have a fantastic offseason, and he has to, at the very least, make Kyle Shanahan comfortable playing him, whether it's because of injury or because of poor play by Brock Purdy. Make Kyle Shanahan comfortable and make Kyle Shanahan believe in you. And then once you get your chance, don't let go. Keep pulling on that rope and don't give up. That's the way to success for Trey Lance. And if it doesn't happen this offseason, and if he fails potentially in a chance this coming regular season, Evan, his Niners career is probably over. So this is a do or die time for Trey Lance.